2.
Good evening, everybody. I'll call this meeting to order, school committee meeting for November 1st, 2023. And we'll start by pledging the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, so let's approve the agenda. I know we have at least one change, which would be under the chair's report to postpone the FY25 capital requests, technology and facilities. We're just taking a little bit more time to get some refining of that request, so we'll probably see that next time.
And I'll talk a little bit about that in my report.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll take that off our agenda. Are there any other changes to the agenda?
The school building committee did not meet.
Okay. Great. Bev, I know you're going to need to leave before the meeting is over for your event. Should we do the finance subcommittee report? Make sure we do that while you're still with us.
So we haven't met since we last convened as a full school committee, but we do have 2 vendor warrants.
Okay. So why don't we do this? Is it okay if we just do citizen speak first, quickly approve those vendor warrants just to get them out of the way, and then go to your report? Okay. So is there anybody here for citizen speak this evening? Is there anybody online? All right. So let's just move right into finance subcommittee and the vendor warrants then. Member Ross-Denny?
We have 2 vendor warrants to approve this evening. We have vendor warrant number 16 in the amount of $533,872.04, payable on October 26th. And we have vendor warrant number 17 in the amount of $393,305.80, with a payable date of November 2nd, 2023. May I have a motion to approve?
Second.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
We have to do a roll call.
Yeah, I think we do a roll call vote since you're on the Zoom.
All right. So, Member Varghese?
Yes.
Member Loring?
Yes.
Dr. Miranda?
Yes.
Dr. Carroll?
Yes.
And Member Chu?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So now, Peter, hand it over to you. Thanks.
Great. So it seems like there's a lot on my list here to talk about. Wanted to first say it was great to see some of you at Monster Dash. That was a great event. I'd heard a lot about it from MFE, and even though the rain was just kind of like wanting to dump, it waited until after the race. Some of you probably are still sore from the run. But it was just a great event, and really nice to see people come out and be together and celebrate schools and community. So that was really, really nice. Wanted to share a brief transportation update. We've been kind of ongoing discussing how to deal with the wait list we have. I did have a conversation with Nick, the town administrator. kind of talking about our predicament and the number of people on the wait list, which is still pretty high. It's at least a bus. We talked through it. The current plan right now is to go to the town finance subcommittee next week to have an initial conversation. I believe that meeting is on Thursday, and I think Glenn's going to go because I'm at the conference with Lizzie, the MASS conference, and then go to the select board on the 14th to request ARPA funds for an additional bus. So when Glenn gets back, we've had an initial call to the transportation service. We'll call them again early next week and kind of begin to talk about what might it look like. Glenn is the holder of the software, which we purchased. We purchased actually a new software program this year to like a route creating software. So we'll go back into that. We'll look at kind of what we can do. We can't do a wholesale, new routes everywhere just because of, there are a number of factors involved in that. But we think we can deal with not every single student, but most students. And then as we look to next year, basically start anew with the current numbers and plan for that. It will be something we're talking about during the budget process because there will be a budgetary impact. I'm not sure, in redoing all the routes where we might be able to find a few efficiencies. I don't believe we have many buses right now that are running at half capacity, so it's not like we have a number of additional seats that are just unused. We just have a lot of students riding buses, so that's a real positive. And we heard one public comment, but we've been hearing a lot more direct comment from parents, just kind of sharing the need to have that and the challenge it's putting on them to get students to school. So was excited that those funds are potentially available, and we'll continue to work on that. So I'll come back with more information, hopefully at our next meeting on the 15th.
So just to be clear, the ARPA funds, one-time funds. So if this is something that would allow us to solve for the current school year, but in order to meet this need for the town next school year and future school years, we need to incorporate this within the budget.
Exactly.
Okay, so just want to make sure that's clear. And then the students on the wait list currently, I think we said at the beginning that we were able to meet kind of all the demand K through 5, and so it's all kind of
By
Pierce.
law, we have to.
Yeah. And so it's Pierce and high school students. Is it like almost all Pierce, or how many high school?
It's a combination of both. Yeah, it's pretty split between those two. But fortunately, the concentration, I think they're in I think it was by precincts, potentially. It might have been precinct 2 had the highest number. Is that East Milton?
No.
7?
Anyway, I think East Milton was 29. And then, we were looking at, well, if you picked up in that area and then you got others on the kind of like along the way, and, and potentially the route might be a little bit longer than normal, but if we can get more students, I think that would be beneficial. So we'll be looking at all that.
Thank you very much for looking into that.
Yeah. Phase 1 of my entry plan, I mentioned I had a couple of weeks, so today is officially phase 2. Mm-hmm. Does the world feel different, or?
A little.
I forgot that it was phase 2 when I woke up, but I eventually remembered. So there's still a little bit of work to kind of finalize surveys. I do want to push this out to get more student response. So I talked to high school and middle school this afternoon in terms of advisories as a potential place where students would be able to have access to that. It's going to go out in Friday communications to parents. So it'd be great if we could get a few more responses. So I'm going to leave that open for probably another week or so, and beginning to to plan with the team, what that priority report, how we're going to consolidate all that data, and really use it as an opportunity, not just to share back out what I heard, but to also really kind of do an assessment of where we are. If you read through these kinds of entry plan reports, oftentimes the superintendent will just share, I heard this, I heard that, and these 4 areas are areas we need to look at and work on. What I'd like to do is also use the opportunity to do like a deep needs assessment as well of the district. I think we need to do that to really kind of set the platform to have the conversations that we're going to be having as we move into the spring and start really talking. And some of this is going to be real deep staff work to be talking about, what does all this mean for us? And how can we really kind of build forward in a big way? So I'm excited about that. We are continuing to work on the short-term space needs. In our meeting here 2 weeks ago, we brought forward that capital requests, and Chris Hayden and I left with the plan to continue working on that capital request, and really looking at what could we do in terms of short-term space needs with this current budget. That is still in play, so that's why Lizzie mentioned that was tentatively put on the agenda, and after Chris and I did some more digging late last week, we realized we wanted to bring a tighter number forward. So we're continuing to work on that, and we'll have it by the 15th. And I mentioned I've talked with the town, and they're good in terms of the committee. Lizzie's work on that capital improvement planning committee. The timing works for us to bring that to the 15th to finalize that. And I'm working on other short-term space needs not directly related to this capital request, but and a few other avenues too. So I hope to have some good news to share on that too in the weeks ahead. Was here, want to thank all the town officials for hosting a coffee here yesterday. We were right here. There were scones and everything on this table. And I got to spend an hour with everybody who works here. It was great to meet some people I hadn't met yet, and see all of them in action, and everyone was super kind and welcoming. We talked about enrollment, I think, in the last meeting. I think, Mark, you were asking about enrollment, so I'm going to bring forward an enrollment report in our next meeting. Just wanted to let you all know. And I have it now, but I wanted to have it as an agenda item as opposed to just in my report. So we're going to bring that forward on the 15th. MHS marching band took a silver medal at the marching band state final. I don't know if you have heard.
Nice.
Right?
And if you didn't know, MHS Susical is coming. Mm-hmm. Do you have tickets yet?
Not yet.
Okay. 16th at 7, the 18th at 2 and 7, and the 19th at 2. Mm-hmm. So that's like right before Thanksgiving, that weekend before. And that's my report.
Great, thanks. Any questions?
I have one about the transportation.
Yeah.
We mentioned the additional costs. You're talking about the FTEs to staff the bus, is that right?
No, it's the cost of the driver and the bus, not FTEs.
I think, are you with what Mark was saying?
No, so you had mentioned that Nick offered to use ARPA funds to secure an extra bus. So I was just trying to differentiate between what costs would be incurred by the town versus the district. When I say FTE, I mean driver. So I was.
Oh, okay.
I don't we'd be paying for a driver, but the actual physical asset of the bus, mm-hmm. is that something that's a long-term lease, and maybe the town is making the first payment instead of just making the entire purchase on our behalf?
We wouldn't be buying the bus. We would just be purchasing the services of the driver and the use of the bus for the next 7 months or whatever it is.
So they were willing to fund that for 1 school year, is that what it is?
We haven't gone before them yet, so this is all tentative, but that was the conversation, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So we lease the town, basically the district is leasing the buses, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
So we have these two Glover School Site Council. And then the field trip approval. Are we taking them in that order or what do you?
Why don't we do the field trip approval first?
That might make sense. That probably.
I see some head nods like.
Sure. Yeah. Come on up. Thank you so much. So we have this document in our folder. And
The music trip proposal?
yeah, this is the 2024 music trip proposal. And we're not voting on this, but we're just kind of hearing the update from you all about the preliminary proposal. So thank you so much for being with us. And actually, maybe we should do some quick introductions. So I'm Lizzie Carroll. I'm the chair of the school committee.
My name is Bao Chu. I'm a member.
Selena Miranda, and I'm the vice chair.
Mark Loring, member.
Anna Varghese, member.
Beverly Ross Denny, member.
Peter Rose, superintendent.
First, okay. Hi, my name is Emily Bolin. I'm a Milton High School senior, and I live in the music department. I'm a drum major for the Milton Wildcat Marching Band. I'm the secretary of Tri-M, which is the Music Honor Society, and I'm the librarian of the concert band. So I live here, and I do a bunch of different ensembles. I am in band, I'm in jazz band, I'm in marching band. I do a funk group. You know my funk group.
I've experienced that.
Yeah, but yeah, I do everything.
And I'm Karen Hughes. I'm the director of PS through 12, Fine and Performing Arts. And I brought Emily here with me because she is an aspiring music educator. And I wanted her to see behind the scenes of what a school committee does in association with the content that she's studying and looking forward to being an educator. So. Yeah, she's very involved.
I'm tired of hearing it.
Well, thank you both so much for being here. So we do have this document, but can you just tell us a little bit about the plans and then we can see if there are any questions?
So it is a cultural trip. We're going to Philadelphia, and on the trip we are going to taking about 100 plus students. We worked with Landmark, which is an agency, to book the travel. It was the most cost-effective one that came back to us. We'll be visiting the Philadelphia Symphony Orchestra, where one of our own, Charlie Rosemarin, just received a position as associate principal percussionist with the Philadelphia Orchestra. So that's exciting. And then we'll also see Beautiful, the Carole King musical, and Ragtime at the Dutch Apple Dinner Theater, amongst other pieces of the trip. But those are the highlights. And I'm also looking forward to sharing a cheesesteak and going to the Rocky Steps. So the trip involves a lot of fundraising. The cost is significant. It's $900. We've taken a poll where students self-reported financial need, and we have worked out a timeline for payments, and we've also did it in accordance so a student could pay for their entire trip by fundraising. And we have various fundraisers throughout the time between now and when the payments are finally in installments are due. So we have a citrus fruit sale. We have a fair trade gift sale. We have Milton music gear sale. Holiday grams. Can you want to tell us about holiday grams?
So for Valentine's Day, if you want at lunch, you can buy like a little like Valentine's Day card, and you can write your name, you can write a little message, and then to deliver it, we'll like play a little song. So for example, last year, me and a couple of friends, we played La Vie en Rose, and I played trumpet, my friend Britt played the flute, and it was a lot of fun. It was fun for classes to see like the music department go around, but yeah, it's like a little treat we do. It's fun.
We also have a bottle and can drive, and we facilitate the Hillard's chocolate fundraiser. So those are all, in the past, the trips were completely paid for by these fundraisers for students. So students have an option where they can fundraise, and if they want to just give it to a fund where we'll distribute it as well, that will be done too.
And I think we also talked about how we have cabaret, which is like a little talent show kind of thing for music. Like the donations from that can also go to the trip. And my funk band, for example, like we get any donations from that, we're going to put that towards our trip instead of taking it for ourselves.
So it's a community effort.
Sounds great.
Lovely.
Does anyone have any questions?
No, keep us posted on the dates so that we can also be part of it and support however we can.
Thank you. We're also working with the school nurse. Kim Coughlin was gracious enough to offer that Shannon Akey would come with us, and we had students, because of the size of the student body, we really feel that we need someone that's familiar with our student body and familiar with our students' needs, medical needs. So Shannon has agreed to take the trip with us, so we're excited for that as well.
And you keep the ratio to 10-1, was that right?
Yes.
And can you speak to I think I saw the security?
Oh, yeah. The Landmark, they offer hotel security, so we don't have to stay up the whole night. We will tape the doors, and we will do our check, but at 10 p.m., the security takes over for us and ensures that students stay in their rooms from 10 p.m. until, I think they work till 4 a.m. And I don't think our students will be up at 4 a.m. So I think they'll be tired from all the activities we'll be doing.
Got it.
That's great.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Sounds exciting. I'm sure it will be really fun.
It will be.
Thank you for allowing us
Thank
the
you.
opportunity. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks
for
so
sharing.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We got the Glover team. Do you want me to call up when it's under my report? I think so. Yeah, okay.
Hi. Hello. Hi.
Not on TV, always watch.
Hello. Yeah.
I'm just gonna make sure I know how to work Garth's fancy thing. Gosh, I don't know how to work fancy things. Got it? Did I do it? Oh, good. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for having us this evening. I know it is the evening after Halloween, so you're probably tired. I'm tired too. I have two little ones who kept me up nice and late tonight, but I'm so lucky because I have amazing Glover representatives here with me tonight. And it's so exciting to get to share with you guys some of the stuff that we do. I wish we could bring you to school. A lot of you have been already. If you haven't been, come. Well, actually, you all have been. But feel free to come and see us anytime. I always say that on my worst day, 5 minutes in a kindergarten classroom on the rug with them, and everything is better. So if you're ever having one of those days, just know 255 Canton Ave. Come anytime. We know who you are, and we'd love to have you. But thanks for having us. We had a great day today. We had a full day PD, which was great for our kids, of course, because they're exhausted. But it also was just a wonderful, it's like this golden opportunity we get twice a year to really come together as all 4 schools. All of our early release days are tricky because we're all on different schedules. They're great, but they're tricky. And this was really an opportunity, and you'll hear a little bit about some of the PD that we are engaging in, but it was a really exciting day. And then on Monday, Dr. Burrows spent the day with us at Glover. He had a lunch bunch with 2nd through 5th grade. And that was tons of fun for, I think, Dr. Burrows as well as the kids. So it's been a really exciting week. So we're excited to be here tonight, and we can't work your thing, sorry. So we have a wonderful site council, and like I said, Assistant Principal Melissa Craven is here. She's our Assistant Principal and Curriculum Coordinator, and our amazing 5th grade teacher, Colin McMurray, fresh haircut, ready for the meeting, is also here. And then joining us in spirit, because I heard the room was really small and they're all tired too, amazing Adjustment Counselor Siop Allen. And then we have 4 parents on our site council: Sarah Forte, Aldo Guerrero, Sarah Hart, and Chris Sharkey. So we're thrilled to have all of them as part of our site council. And we're just going to share a little bit about who we are and our goals, our school improvement plan goals, and a brief data highlight. And then we'd love to, answer any questions you might have about Glover School. So.
All right, so I'm going to talk us through what our classrooms look like right now. And this year we're very fortunate because we lost a 5th grade bubble class, but we didn't gain one in kindergarten, which is allowing us to utilize that classroom space as a hybrid music art classroom. And the way we're using that space is our K through 2 classrooms go into the art music room for art class, and our 3 to 5 students go in for music class. So it is a nice little luxury this year that we have to have that alternative space for some of our kids to do art, some to do music. But when we look at our numbers there, we kind of see that kindergarten's looking pretty even right now with about 22, 23, which is typically high for kindergarten classes. And then we go into our grade 1, which we see our 2 French classes are a bit higher compared to our English. However, that's not the case for all of our grade levels. If you look at 3rd grade, the French numbers and the English numbers are kind of flipped. And we do kind of give COVID, I guess, the credit for that, for those numbers. So we are still seeing, though our French numbers typically a little bit higher when we have 4 classes in a grade level as opposed to our years that we have bubbles. So those are our numbers currently. So here are just a screen of all of the supports that we have at Glover right now. These are some of our Tier 2 intervention supports for our students. Our student support team, which is run by the district inclusion specialist, Maureen Butler, who oversees all 4 elementary school student support team, which is awesome because it kind of gives all 4 schools the same playing ground when it comes to referring students to student support team. And our team is made up of a bunch of amazing, talented people, and then whoever is the teacher who is submitting that student is also part of that conversation and team as well. Our BHST team, that is also another great team with a lot of amazing people in it. And again, the teachers who are referring students are also part of that conversation. So we did add the numbers of the referrals as of right now, November 1st, but we did also want to highlight the numbers from last year. So the reason why our behavioral health support team numbers are so much larger is because the same student can be referred throughout the year. So it's not 167 solo students. It could be students who have been referred throughout the year, as opposed to student support team where our numbers are just per student because we follow them throughout the year. Depending on what the team thinks, it might be an 8-week check-in or a 12-week check-in from there. So that's just to explain the numbers and why the BHST numbers look so much bigger. So this year we are very fortunate to have a math interventionist just for Glover. So she is really able to kind of see more students, and our numbers right now are for 39. That doesn't stay the whole year. Our math interventionist team with Brian, they always look at the data and they will create new teams throughout the year or different support groups. The same with our reading specialist. We have one for grades 1 and 2, as well as a reading specialist for grade 3. And then we have our EL students. We have our early literacy and learning coach who sees just kindergarten. Our early literacy coach works with Glover and Cunningham, and then we have another one who works with Collycott and Tucker. Then for our specialized programming, these are our special ed programs that we have language-based, we have foundations, and we have Compass, which is formerly known as STEP. We are trying to streamline our programs a little bit more so they're consistent with the middle school and high school. It's easier for our special educators if we have the same name for the programs, because I think that's been an issue the past couple years where our special educators who are sending students off to the middle school, and I know it's the same case for middle school to high, the understanding of all the programmings at the different levels sometimes aren't as clear, so that's why we're trying to streamline it with the same language and names. And then we also just wanted to incorporate our total IEPs as well as our total 504s for students that we are supporting in a tier 3.
Bev, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question about how many school adjustment counselors you have.
So we have 2 adjustment counselors. Miss Allen, she is our adjustment counselor for our Compass program. So she does a lot of like wraparound care for the families within the Compass program. So although she is servicing students throughout the day one-on-one and also kind of responding more in a therapeutic when a student is having maybe a trickier time, but she also does so much wraparound care with the families, whereas we have another adjustment counselor and he sees everyone else outside of that program, and he's doing more direct services throughout the day as well as that wraparound care too with his families as well.
Thank you.
So our school improvement plan very much mirrors the district's strategic plan, and that's intentional. And we are working around 3 goals. And we believe, as the district does, that we can bring our students to their highest levels of personal success and achievement if we provide personalized learning experiences for them. But we know that we can be as personalized as we want to be, but if we have not established a foundation that is safe and supportive and equitable, our students are not going to be able to learn to their fullest potential. So we do believe, just like the district believes, that those foundational blocks are critically important. I won't read to you all the words that are associated with each of our goals. They are very similar to the strategic plan, but we're going to highlight a little bit about what we're doing in each of those goals. 5th grade teacher, Mr. McMurray, is going to share a little bit about our first goal, academic achievement and personalized learning.
So our big goal for innovative teaching is crafting that personalized learning, but also in a sense, making sure that kids get what they need. Since that if you have 24 students in class, they may not all benefit from the same lesson the same way. We're really driving that approach by those assessments. And it's not just like everyone hears assessment, they think big test and, kids are nervous. But in reality, it's a variety of assessments such as, our iReady data, which we can do, teacher assigned lessons on that give us direct feedback on how they did, what parts they didn't do well on. You'll also see that we use exit tickets. So kind of in the moment to exit a lesson, we'll give them maybe 2 problems that they do independently. That allows us to check it quickly and see maybe what specific part. Like for me personally, we were doing long division and I was seeing that the students understood the steps of long division the same way that you learned it probably when you were in school. But I saw that a lot of the errors were in their multiplication facts, and they were saying, well, 2 goes into 8, and they would say 3 times and do 6 instead of getting it all the way to the 8. So stuff like that allows us to see what a student might need. And then the next day or later on that week, when we do our centers and we break them up into smaller groups, it would allow us to then, pull some kids who have that same issue. And that way we can directly, go after that and help them out and support them. So that way, when they rejoin the whole class, they can see it. So by doing that, it kind of allows us to craft more specific lesson plans for our kids, or even just quick check-ins. It's not always that you need to do a lesson. It's stopping by them right after you, begin the activity and saying, hey, let's chat real quick. How can we fix this problem? Or how do you think you're doing? And they're pretty honest. And they're like, I don't get it. I'm like, well, what don't you get? Like there's something in particular. It's not the whole thing. So that's definitely a big way of how we're kind of personalizing instruction. There's also a variety of different things with, content that we're doing in science and ELA, and just a big fan of math, which is shocking compared to if you ask my middle school teachers, they would not have agreed at the peers. But so then for time on learning as well as sitting down and kind of figuring out what's the best way to effectively craft a lesson to fit those minutes that we're getting in the classroom. Because as you all know, school ends, it's not like it goes on forever and ever on a school day. So just making sure that we are effectively planning a lesson so that way we can cover all the content necessary, but also finding time to craft more hands-on activities that are going to really benefit the students. So like for 5th grade, what we do with science is we have a lot of experiments. We're doing evaporation. So we'll, make water cups filled with salt water and we'll put them outside, and finding time for stuff like that. Just so that way it becomes more enjoyable and they actually see it happening, right? Because you can give them a worksheet, they can follow along and they can do the bare minimum and then say, oh, yeah, I know evaporation works, and repeat what you said. But really getting them to see it and interact with it and getting hands-on, or maybe even like creating their own projects, or we do activities through like scraps and stuff like that. So it's really kind of using our time on learning and personalized instruction to really kind of craft that activity and personalize those lessons. And then for professional development today, which actually was a really great one, is about giving choice to students. So it's funny to hear choice and you think it's like, here's an activity, do whatever you want. And it's really not. It's in the sense of like having them take ownership on what they want to do. And I kind of always had that hard time because like 5th grade's kind of funny where they're ready for middle school, but they're still kids. So it's kind of funny, like, all right, they want the choice, they want the responsibility, they want to be like, oh, I got to pick this. But if you let them do whatever, they're going to be running around the halls. It's going to be out of control. You're going to be chasing them. So for that one today, we were learning about crafting those centers. And I always was very rigid on like, you need to do 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, and then you come that way to me, and then we wrap up. And then realizing like, well, if they get that first, like it's great. But if they get it at the end of the day, that's what we really want. You know what I mean? So maybe if they would prefer to kick off math, and I do it first in the morning for most days, just how my schedule works out with specials. I'm thinking of myself, like, I would not want to hop right in the lesson right away. Maybe I want to do like the fun little challenge activity kind of as like a warm up. If you're in sports, you're doing the stretch and the run around before you actually play the game. So maybe do an activity like that. And doing these activities with choice really kind of do benefit student learning and make them want to learn. And so today when we were doing that choice, we sat down with our teams and we're talking about it. And it's funny, I'm sitting there thinking like, what can we do in this 1st grade class is saying, well, we do the shaving cream on the table and we practice their letters and their spelling, the shaving cream. And I'm like, my 5th graders really like that. Maybe I might steal a shaving cream lesson. So it kind of connects to, I think, what we're going to talk about a little bit about how we really truly craft personalized learning is one person doing it for 24, like, right, trying to come up with all those ideas and all that just doesn't work out, right? Because I'm sitting there like, what can I do for this kid? What can I do for that kid? I don't know all the answers. So we're going to probably talk about, I think it's on the next slide, about kind of common planning and some of the styles of classroom like observations and how we're really implementing it and kind of assessing ourselves on how it's working and if it's effective or not. So for today's PD for myself in the morning, I did a STEM PD for the English Innovations Pathway, and I actually got partnered up with some of the 3rd and 4th grade teachers at Glover. And it was nice to truly see, and what we're working on is I got to see today what they do in 3rd and 4th and how it builds up to what I do in 5th. So a lot of the times you're sitting there going like, do they know this yet? Or how does it work? Like, what did they cover last year? But truly to get to see those teachers, like, explain what they do and their process, how they collaborated as a team. I know as a chunk, well, when any of those kids in those 3 classes come my way, then they're going to be on the same page that I needed them to be on. So not only do I, collaborate with teachers across, the building and all that, but also the district as well. I used to work at Collicott for a year back when the first year back from COVID, I was a remote teacher the whole year. It was a fun experience. I'm happy we're in the classroom though. But so I still I'll text the Collicott teachers. I know some of the Cunningham, I used to Cunningham after school and just text them and say like, hey, do you have anything for this? Like what do you have for a fun activity for, for ELA, for comparing characters, the relationship between events and really just getting that collaboration of events instead of like reinventing the wheel over and over again. We've been given a lot of opportunities to collaborate not only with the people across the hall that have usually similar profile kids as you, to now kids all over the district. Because I might have a teacher who, might work with students who have severe disabilities. And I'm like, well, what would you accommodate for them? Because I might have a student one day like that, and it's better to add it to my arsenal. And then just overall with getting feedback, there's assessment data that we'll talk about later, but those are just some examples about iReady and M-Class, the dibbles that we take that allow us to kind of more, assess students, how they're doing content-wise. And then for like us overall with the social emotional as well, we've started implementing. I know for a few of the teachers on my team, we're doing these weekly check-ins on Google Form. And it's something silly as like, what's your favorite song? Like, would you rather chocolate or a vanilla milkshake? And then it's like, what's something that worries you about your school day? And it's kind of that weird thing where they kind of feel silly and goofy, and then they like answer that question without like diving deep and like, oh, he's asking you about like how I feel. So it's kind of a good way that we figured out like what works for you, what works for me. And we kind of share those ideas, whether it's, my 5th grade common planning time or when we're talking to other teachers across the district.
Awesome. Thank you. So our second goal is around SEL and safe and supportive schools. And we've got tons of really good professional development. In fact, all of our SEL leads and adjustment counselors today participated in a very robust and rigorous trauma training that they are all going to bring back to their schools. So the SEL lead model has been very successful. There's 2 leads in each building. 12 total leads, and our philosophy is really to take advantage of the train the trainer model and train them up as best as we can, and then bring them back through common planning time, through faculty meetings, through half-day early release time, to really move forward some of that work. So they all participated today, and then they actually worked this afternoon on other protocols and procedures related to the counseling world. So I'm excited to see what comes out of that. And I'm also excited to share, I don't know if Dr. Burrows shared, but some of this training is not cheap. And I was able to, on behalf of the district, secure another competitive grant for SEL for the district. So thanks to DESE, we were able to get $60,000. And that will continue to stipend our SEL leads, as well as pay for really high quality PD for them. Again, in that train the trainer model, we just don't have enough time to put all of our staff in these trainings. We would love to, but the thinking is, if we really train up our SEL leads and our adjustment counselors, oftentimes those SEL leads and adjustment counselors are one and the same. For example, I have 2. One is one of my adjustment counselors. The other is an occupational therapist in my school. So, and some are classroom teachers, but a lot of our counselors are also part of our SEL advisory team. So that's super exciting. So we certainly have a lot of ongoing professional development. We're working with Maria Trozzi, working on our crisis team protocols. She met with us once, she'll meet with us again. We rolled out our new Power School SEL screener. So if you remember last year, the district used IntelliSpark. We're moving away from that because it cost a lot of money, and we really just didn't maximize the platform as well as we should have for the amount of money it cost. That was funded through the grant last year, and we felt that the grant funding, well, first of all, we didn't know we had it at the time, but also we felt it would be better spent on professional development and stipending our really good educators. And so we have Power School anyways, and they have an amazing SEL screener that Jenny Beliveau, the lead adjustment counselor at the high school, Vivu, and I met with their team last year. We really looked at it carefully. It does seem to very much mirror the same data that we were getting from IntelliSpark. So that was rolled out last week in all 6 schools. So we're excited to see that data come in, and that is more of a culture climate survey, just kind of seeing how our kids are really feeling in school. And then we have vocal data that also will be coming, that is administered by DESE in 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, and 10th. That follows the MCAS and kind of also gives us some really valuable student well-being data. I think I skipped ahead to the data slide, sorry. But so we're excited about that too. That has not been officially released by the state yet. They get the MCAS data out first, and then they follow it with all the other stuff. You heard Melissa talk a little bit about behavioral health support team, and in a minute you're gonna see me share some data that I think is really exciting and that I attribute directly to the work of the behavioral health support team. We didn't have behavioral health support teams 8 years ago when I got here to the Milton Public Schools. And 6 years ago, we did a state safe and supportive schools self-assessment, which is something that DESE puts out, and it's a very robust, lengthy, it takes hours and hours. You have to have a committee of educators and community members and teachers and students. But one of the things that came out of it 6 years ago was that we didn't have behavioral health support teams in each of our schools, and now we do. And you saw the numbers about referrals. But when you think about those referrals, what we're talking about is who might struggle with putting Thanksgiving dinner on the table and might benefit from a dinner that, shout out to Steel and Rye. They provide dinners to many of our families, fully cooked steel and rye Thanksgiving dinners. Little known little known thing, but the Kerrigans are an amazing family and super supportive of all of us. So it's things like that. Who needs, who did we notice who hasn't had a snack in the last week? Who's been really quiet lately? What do we know about something going on at home or something with a family member? Because we believe and we know that the more we know about them as whole people, the better we can personalize learning for them and help them to be as available as possible for their learning. So I will share a little bit of data in a minute, like I said, that I think is directly correlated with the work of the behavioral health support teams. And I did already reference a lot of this. But I also, I think the soft signs are just as important. I'm a big believer in the little things not being so little after all, right? If a staff member is having a hard time and I know they've been out sick for the last couple of days, I'm going to make sure I stop by and say, how are you doing? Do you need 5 minutes? Do you need to go to the bathroom? Do you need to just go get water, right? Those little things matter. They're a big deal. A big deal to me is that I know that 100% of the kids in my school can identify a trusted adult in my school. I know that because they tell me that. They know who they can go to, and most of them have more than one that they feel like they can go to. But I don't sniff at that number in any way, shape, or form, because if everybody has somebody, if everybody has a champion, then we can do really, really good work for kids. But I, also wanted to share some staff and family data, and this data came from the surveys that our site council did at the end of last year, so it's about 4 months old. 98% of staff felt that Glover was a safe and supportive school, and there were no negative responses. It was just one neutral response. And 97% of families felt that Glover was a safe place for their children. I'm proud of those numbers. Those numbers mean a lot to all of us. And our third goal is around equity, again, mirroring the strategic plan. And that picture on the top there, before I turn it over to Melissa, is the Lantern Walk and Monster Bash, which I have to say, Member Denny and Member Carroll had a blast, I hope. Although I heard Kira at one point was like, where is my mom? So
You didn't have to call me out, but yes, she did.
So Melissa's going to share a little bit about some of the work we do. And I do really, truly believe that equity work and the safe and supportive work is so intertwined. I think they could probably be one bubble on the three-prong pillar approach. Because what we're doing to create safe and supportive schools is also embedded in strategies that prioritize equity.
Yeah, I would say that to Karen's point, when we think about making sure that all kids feel safe and supported in school, kids and adults also have to feel like they're viewed and valued and included and they belong. So we do take that very seriously in ensuring that all of our students feel like they can see themselves in their learning. Because if they don't feel like they're valued or they're included or they're heard, we're not going to be able to teach them core content like math or reading or writing. So it is very high in our priority list to make sure that all of these goals are viewed equally, because without one, the other two don't happen. So we have a lot of different ways that we really work hard on making sure that our kids do feel valued and included. And it's through opportunities that we try to give, that we partner with our DEI committee that we meet with monthly. And we're hoping as the year progresses that we can kind of merge our Tucker and Glover DEI committees, because we do try to partner with our Tucker community as well. Actually, this Lantern Walk is a great example of how two school communities came together and had just an unbelievably fun night. And it was the brain power of our PTO as well as the Tucker PTO. So we are hoping to do a little bit more DEI work with Tucker as the year progresses. Other things that we do to really make sure that we are looking at goal 3 and making sure that all kids can feel included is by having diverse authors come and they read, and they do book clubs with the students as well. We just actually got a ton of new books for our library to diversify it. And last year, each classroom teacher was able to put into the PTO up to, I believe, $500 of new classroom books to diversify their own personal libraries as well. Books are a great way to use those windows and mirrors to kind of guide those conversations for our students to make sure that they do feel included. So kind of thinking of like the data that we use to ensure that we are tracking this, we do have that assessment data. Vocal survey data does give us a good understanding of our DEI goals as well as the SEL screener that Karen mentioned earlier. Our attendance and our participation data is another tool that we use. And then also just thinking of our school culture and our climate surveys that Karen touched upon for goal 3 as well. And then like those soft signs for our goal 2, we have them for goal 3 as well. We do look into that data of that the site council does put out at the end of the year. And then other school activities that we do student leadership, which is a great way for our 4th and 5th graders to really get involved in the school, as well as taking ownership of their school. They just all sent their applications. Actually, if anyone's watching, they're due by tomorrow. Any late applications will be considered for any leftover teams. However, they have a week, and we really talk to them about the importance of punctuality for your application, as well as we ask them to get a reference from anyone outside of Glover School, and then explain why they would be a really great fit for our student leadership teams. Things like the green team, they go around and they help recycle. Kindergarten lunch help, they go around and help the kindergartners during lunch. 1st grade French support, 1st grade English support, 2nd grade. So it's all these really great clubs that they can join and apply for. We also do glee clubs, which are run before and after school. And again, they're teacher-led. Teachers submit what they think would be a really great opportunity for kids, bracelet making. I think we have a basketball club this year. We have poetry. We have all these great opportunities before and after school. We are also starting parent-led with a couple amazing parents, not only a book club, but they're also going to be bringing back a Continental Math League Club to also give some of those enrichment opportunities as well. So we are working hard to also see what the other schools across the district are doing as well, because if something's working great at one school, why not share it with the other 3 schools? So we are collaborating a lot with all of the elementary schools, because we do want to ensure that across the board that all of our students are feeling valued at each of their schools.
Ask Melissa, who runs the basketball before school club.
Me and another time. I'm excited about it.
We'll just really quickly share, and I appreciate the shout out. Glover was recognized as a school of recognition. And you can see, I really was curious, like, what does that mean? And where did that come from? And what distinguished us? And so I did a very deep dive into our data. And in general, our students, all students, and that's every subgroup, that's the entire population in ELA and math, met the target that is established by DESE in terms of what they are hoping to see in terms of growth, and all of our students exceeded it in science. But I really wanted to draw attention to some of our champions. So that second section of the chart, we really look very carefully at our subgroup data. It's important to us that we're making sure that we are doing everything we can to close any gaps that exist, as well as target instruction and intervention to make sure that every child is getting what they need. Our multi-race ELA exceeded their target. Our lowest performing, which is the bottom 25% in math, exceeded their target. Our low income kids in math exceeded their target. Our multi-race in math exceeded their target. So I just wanted to shout out that I believe part of that school of recognition designation is how many groups, how many subgroups exceeded the target that DESE had set for us. That is significantly different than what we've seen in previous years, and is really exciting. You know, when you look at the multi-race and ELA and you look at our achievement was 503 and this year it was 516. I mean, these are a positive change of 13.0. That's really exciting data that shows us that the targeted interventions and supports that we're putting into place are indeed working, and we're excited about that. And again, this is, I mentioned this earlier, so attendance. It's a big deal. We know that when kids don't feel safe, they don't feel supported, they don't feel good about themselves as learners, it's harder to get them to school. And so through our behavioral health support team, we monitor attendance every week. We look at every single kid and we look at trends. We look at, are we sick on Mondays? Are we always sick on Fridays? Are there patterns? Are there things? We outreach with families. And what I wanted to draw your attention to is, in addition to those academic scores, you can see that our lowest performing, that's our bottom 25, they exceeded their target. Our high needs kids exceeded their target, and our low income kids exceeded their target in terms of attendance. You can see their rate of absenteeism, right? So that 2022 down to 2023, we want those numbers going down. Counterintuitive, right? We usually want numbers going up, but it is so good to see that work that we're doing in our behavioral health support teams of calling families, what's going on, what can we do, how can we help, how can we get your child to school, because we can't educate them if we can't get them into classrooms. So I did just want to share that data as well. It sometimes gets overlooked, but it's really important. A chronically absent kid is a kid that has missed 10% or more of the school year. If we have 180 days, that's 18 absences. That is a tremendously insurmountable, challenge in terms of catching up and getting back on track. So we've really prioritized attendance in over the last year with our behavioral health support team. And it was really good to see those results come up. And then we have our, iReady and Lexia data, which Melissa can quickly go through. I know we're way past our 15 minutes, sorry.
We'll just go through this quickly. This is just our diagnostic fall iReady data first. And I did put up last year's just because you can see the similarities. I mean, it almost is like a carbon copy. However, just to note at the top for this year, our kindergarten starts the diagnostic a few months into school, as they're still not only learning just how to be a student in a school building, but also learning a lot about technology. So we really want to make sure that they're feeling settled before we ask them to take a diagnostic. So that is highlighted up at the top. It does not include kindergarten yet. But we do see very similar results, which is pretty interesting since last year was our first year with the new math curriculum. So although we had a brand new math curriculum, which always has, it's hard in the first year of implementation. There's always figuring out what's working, what's not working. So to see data that's very similar, it will be interesting to see how the winter diagnostic compares to last year as well. So this is just the overall placement for the school, whereas this slide is placement by domain, again, with all grade levels included, however, not including kindergarten for the top part. Again, except for some of our red at the ends, there's a couple flipped. I believe I can't see it on this slide, but I wanted to say it might have been algebra and the numbers and operations might have switched a bit. However, again, pretty similar in the results from this year to last year, which is pretty fascinating to see. This is our Dibbles fall diagnostic. I did include in our next slide, which before I talk about, it is our Lexia from last year. It's so hard to compare the two platforms because they're so different. I did just want to show the difference. However, it's kind of like comparing apples and oranges. So we will have more understanding of our Dibbles data and how it compares year after year, the more that we are implementing it. So this is just kind of our composite for each grade level. So it's seeing the general overview per grade where you can go dive deeper into each grade level. And we're all working a lot with our ELA coordinator, Kat DeRoche, and we're learning more about the platform and all of the different ways that it can benefit our students. So it's going to be really great and fascinating to see how our Dibbles data looks once we do the winter diagnostic, and then kind of compare it to previous years with using Lexia.
And that's really all we have. And we really appreciate the opportunity to show off a little bit. We love what we do. It's why we do what we do. But we could not do any of it without the support of our school committee, which is amazing, Superintendent Burrows, Assistant Superintendent McKinney, and Pavlicek. So we're super grateful. And of course, all of our coordinators who led amazing PD today. This is truly a collaborative effort. but it's always so exciting to get to share it with you. So thank you.
Thank you all so much.
We went over.
Comments from anybody?
Okay.
It looks like Bev dropped off. Is that true?
Yep.
Okay. So, any questions, comments from anyone?
Just a couple. Sorry.
Good. I like it.
The supports and resources slide, it had said student support team, and then it said 27 students as of November 1st. Y'all might have said this, but what is that number?
That's the number of students who have been referred by classroom teachers.
Okay. New students have been referred, so above and beyond the 62 from last year.
Could be, or it could be repeats. So a lot of them actually probably are repeats where they may have been referred last year. We may have implemented interventions, and the receiving teacher may be saying, I'm still concerned about this particular thing. So they could actually be redundancies from last year.
I'll just say, your data is really strong. I think the attendance data, the improvements is great. I mean, I looked at the African-American attendance data, chronic absentee in particular, dropping, 12 points. That's fantastic. I think I completely agree with you. You can't teach a kid if they're not in front of you, right? Attendance is kind of very baseline, and chronic absenteeism as a metric itself is also still just very disappointing, given it's already kind of above and beyond where you'd even like to be addressing issues. And I'll just say for public, the 6 is really good as it relates to the state overall metric, but that, it still means we have about 35 kids at the school who are missing essentially the entire month in November, because I think we have 17 learning days in November. So it's actually more than missing the entire month. And that's really hard then for a kid to miss an entire month and y'all to help keep them on track. So really important we get kids to school. So all those improvements are fantastic. Real hats off. Is the vocal, this might be more of a question for you, is the vocal survey one that is done across the entire district? So
What did you say? Vocal?
The vocal survey, the student survey. They referenced a few times with some of their assessments.
It's done in every school in the Commonwealth.
Great. I'd be interested in seeing, I don't remember seeing that at the other ones, although maybe I missed it as I was focusing on other things.
I think it's the first time I heard about this also.
Yeah, so I'd just be interested to see some of that data.
That for sure, yeah.
We were talking about it a little bit last year.
Yeah, I think I presented a little bit about it at the Safe and Supportive Schools Forum and things like that. But it's definitely an underutilized tool, and it's great data. And we have it because the kids have to do it in order to finish the MCAS. so it's good.
But it was going to replace another assessment, right?
Yes. Oh, no, that is our Power School one.
Okay.
So that's our internal screener.
Got it.
That's done at all 6 schools for SEL. Yep, we're actually doing that right now.
Got it.
In place of IntelliSpark.
In place of IntelliSpark, yep. Asked almost the exact same questions, and it's part of our platform that we are currently trying to embrace as best as we can.
For me, just a big comment in terms of, again, looking at your data, just great job overall. I think, to me, it illustrates that the approach that you're taking, the framework, right, of really digging down on the 3 different goals and going just deep on every single one of them and making sure that, the safe and supportive schools is not just a goal by itself. It's really how is it showing up and everywhere. That way you've taken personalized learning and sort of made sure that you're focusing on just not only the students themselves, but I think to your point in your presentation around sort of us teachers, what are teachers doing to internalize sort of these approaches. I think it definitely shows in the data of the great work, and kudos to you for leading the charge here. I'm just impressed overall and sort of thinking, how do we take the learnings and apply it to Tucker, apply it to all the other elementary schools, because something's working and we have it here in the district.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
I'm going to actually echo what both Mark and Selena said in terms of, it's nice to get some kind of more information around the goals, that you have. And just like the PD that you were talking about today was really helpful to kind of understand how personalized learning works. Like, I think it sounds good on paper, but really, like, how do you, cater to 24 different students, right? And like, where do you kind of let them decide so they're not running around through the hallways, but actually doing it and taking ownership? So I think getting that clarity was really important for me personally, because I've, we've been hearing about personalized learning, but now to really see how it's being implemented was very helpful. Thank you. Great job, though, overall.
And having spent, Karen mentioned I was there on Monday all day, and one of the things I would remark on that I think is really special about Glover is the culture that's been developed, and like, great work happens everywhere, but it doesn't really coalesce until there's a strong culture and everyone's really connected together. And that, looking at the 3 pillars and thinking about kind of the pragmatic things that are happening, there's something I think this leadership team really brings a lot of heart to the community. And I see that doing magical things in lots of different ways. I also see a lot of the structures in place, pedagogical structures, operational systems that support their work. But without that, none of the other pieces work. So just want to say I experienced that.
Great job. Actually, I do have one follow-up question. The soft signs that you talked about, the data points on safe and supportive schools. Are other schools collecting that data?
So I think depending on where they are in their school improvement plan cycle, best practice is to, at the end of your cycle or at the beginning of a new cycle of a 3-year cycle, to survey all stakeholders. Okay. So we are at the beginning of our 23 to 26 cycle here at Glover, but every school is actually on a different cycle, so I don't know when they do that, but we have, every time we've embarked on a new school improvement plan cycle, we've sent out a series of surveys to students, staff, and families, just to sort of touch base. And I think the most, I couldn't capture it here, but the most helpful is really just a lot of open-ended questions. We ask simply, what are we doing well, and what could we do better? And to hear from our kids is like, Melissa and I just sit and we wait and we look at the data as it comes in. And it's so important to us to hear. Not that we don't love hearing from our teachers and our families, but they do that all the time naturally. And our kids, they're the consumers of the product that we're trying to craft.
I love that.
So it's really, I love getting that information. But yeah, that's part of our cycle.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, well, I'll just add my thanks and congratulations on the recognition, and it's a lot to celebrate, and thank you all so much. And Mr. McMurray, I want to give you a special thanks, because what you contributed in the way you shared tonight was, as Anna mentioned, that was really insightful, and especially to hear in almost real time, your experience of the professional development, what that collaborative dialogue, that's just on a slide and we can hear about, but quite honestly, having been a teacher, I know that that time is not always actually resulting in a meaningful impact in practice. And so it was really great to hear you describe your own experience of that and how it applies in your classroom. And thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you all for everything you do. And thank you for the lantern walk. It was fun, but it was also, I totally agree, it was a really inspiring example of the kinds of things we talk here a lot about, how to bring our community together and bring our kids together before peers, and to just help families feel connected when our system of 4 schools can, especially for Glover and Tucker, unlike Cunningham and Collycott, we are, physically apart. So anyway, thanks again for that. And yeah, Keep up the awesome
Take
work.
years off of our lives as adults, but the kids have a blast.
Worth it. Just keep eating donuts. It's all good.
So I do have one more question. What is duck feed?
So it's becoming a thing where I don't know what to do because we haven't had ducks in a really long time, but we keep with the duck mascot. It's the PBIS, Tucker's Tiger Stripes and Cunningham Cougar Paws or whatever they have. Where Cardinal, yeah, we have duck feet.
Okay.
And we're hoping someday the ducks come back, the real ducks.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Put it in
I
the
love
budget.
those videos.
We could bring some over, actually.
I may or may not one year have been corn in the outdoor
You
classroom.
have to go here because we have to go for that.
It's my favorite.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. I know it's a long evening. but we
Oh,
really
thank
appreciate
you. I know it's a long day for you all.
Yeah.
They're very good.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the work.
Goodbye.
All of you.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
They're very good cookies.
I'm not being
But they'd be
videoed.
good with the other two things you mentioned.
Is that?
They'd be good with the other two things you mentioned earlier.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll let her know you approve of this.
Yeah, I approve of that
very
business
good.
model.
Okay. That was you're great. And also what you said, is important too. As far as let's get all of our kids experiencing that
Yeah.
level of just, that's great. Really impressive. Is there anything else under your report?
I think we're good.
Okay. I guess a little bit of a segue to the chair's report, just to put out there. You all will have seen the message that Peter sent us regarding the Tucker principal search. And we do have the opportunity for one school committee member to join the search committee. So I will make sure that Bev receives this message as well so that we all hear it. But can you please, if you're interested in that, please let me know, offline, if that's something you would be interested in. You would need to be able to attend the dates which are laid out in the message on the flyer.
So the flyer has a range.
But there are dates.
There are dates on the Google form. Yep.
So maybe I can pull what those might be. Don't fill out the Google form. Let's see if we can kind of work out together who's going to represent the school committee on that. Knowing as well, we have a couple other searches coming up that school committee representation will also be invited. And so for right now, how about this? What I can do is send an email to all of us. I can say these are the dates of the interviews that you would need to be available. And then if you're interested in putting your name in the ring for that, just email me back, okay? All right, so under the chair's report, one thing we need to go through is these resolutions for the MASC convention, and this is a PDF that's in our folder. I understand did everyone get a chance to read through all of these to know kind of where you're at? Okay, so what we're gonna do is go through them one by one and vote. A yes means yes, I'm in favor of this resolution. A no would be no, I'm not in favor of it. We'll kind of record where we come out, and then that will inform how I participate in the delegate assembly next week. Any questions about that, or are we ready to go forward with, and I mean, I guess like any motion, anything we vote on, we can open it for discussion. So I think what we should do is just make a motion for each of the resolutions in turn, And that will open the floor for discussion if anyone has things you want to say, and then we'll take a vote one by one. So I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 1 on the full stable funding for Metco. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
I don't know if it's out of bounds here, but obviously Milton does not participate in Metco. Has Milton ever discussed participating in Metco? I don't know why I even glance in your direction. But does anybody?
Well, I have asked the same question, so you can glance over. I have asked.
Take a vote on school choice in like June, right? Every year. And
That's different, though.
That's not
That's
Metco.
different, yeah.
Okay.
Have we ever?
I don't think we've ever participated.
Not in Metco.
I don't know if you jump in and out of. Well, I don't know enough about.
I don't think districts jump in and out. I think they've been committed for a long time, those that are in it.
I don't know that I pulled back. So I just don't know if there have been previous conversations about it. I know it's from the Boston end and seeing the students that it serves, it's been a highly successful program. I mean, the results are fantastic. I know we have a space constraint issue already, so I don't know if it's something the town is willing to do in the short term or is able to do in the short term, but I didn't know if there was extra context that I was missing. Sorry.
I guarantee on Monday when our resident historian returns, we will have an answer for this.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, like, I think we're just asked whether we support the resolution, like as part of, do we want MASC to vote, support this or not as a member district of MASC, even if we're not Metco. Any other questions or thoughts on this particular one? Okay, then all in favor?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's unanimous for Resolution 1. Then Resolution 2, regarding investigations for recommendations for transportation bidding procedures. I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2. Is there a second? Okay. Any discussion of this one?
I don't know if this will do anything, but I think this is a huge problem, and it would be hugely helpful for something to be done about it.
And it's happening across the country. It's not just in Massachusetts.
Okay, so all in favor? Okay. So I will make a motion to approve Resolution 3 on regional transportation. Any comments, questions?
Need a second?
Need a second.
Oh yeah, second. Sorry.
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Any discussion?
Once again, this doesn't apply to Milton, right?
It's like,
I figured there's some reason this is probably really important to someone.
yeah.
And then we'll bring it for the subcommittee. Okay, all in favor? Okay. All right, that brings us to, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 4 on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thanks. Any discussion?
Just had one question, like, what is Division X? Because I know a lot of the other ones are submitted by school committees. That was just my question on that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that it's like an entity of MASC. But I actually don't know for sure. It is, I mean, it's using a title.
MASC member communities are divided into 7 geographical divisions, plus a vocational technical division, an urban division, and a minority caucus. Division 7 is Cape and Islands.
So this is Division 10.
Division 10.
Oh, Division 10, sorry. Inclusion, diversity, and equity.
So it's a group of representatives
It's-
to
yeah.
MASC.
Yeah, it's like a task
School
force or
committee members
something.
from different towns. In terms of noting like other ways, so they're talking about adopt the position of DEI coordinator to work towards. So clearly in Milton, I mean, it's lowercase c. So, you know, I guess I'm interpreting this as it's really talking to districts that have not yet adopted any position.
DEI position, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's not saying like, okay, just because
Yeah, that was my friendly amendment.
We have,
it should say a DEI position
Right.
or something,
Yeah.
not
Close to the
coordinator.
coordinator level.
like, it's just, if you have a DEI director, now you also need to add a DEI coordinator like that. I think that doesn't seem to be the intent of this.
I think it's a position focused on DEI is
Right.
what the intent is here, I'm sure.
Yeah. And so therefore it also is not relevant to us. We've already done that. But,
It makes sense.
okay. All in favor? Okay.
It looks like Division 10 too is, and it says basically anyone who's interested is encouraged to participate in Division 10. So it's not a set number of
Okay.
school committee members.
So the next one, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 5 on the Mass School Building Authority. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion of this one?
I also think these would be great changes to help with funding. Obviously, this is more applicable to Milton than the others, especially that last part of, devoting some resources to preschools, which they historically do not do.
Yep.
That'd be great.
Agreed.
Okay. All in favor? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 6 on School Bus Stop Arm Surveillance Act and enforcement and penalties. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yes. Safety is important.
Yep.
Just generally, though, Massachusetts, I think, is one of the states where we don't have light cameras at lights. Speed ticket light cameras, right?
But a lot of the traffic lights have cameras.
Well, maybe they have cameras, yes, but they don't do the automatic ticketing through the cameras. Other states have. So I think that's just something that doesn't, I think, currently exist within it. So this would be, I don't know, different. Anyways, that was neither here nor there comment, I guess.
I know our school bus has a
Delaying our
camera that records what's happening in the bus.
Yes.
But is it a camera that records what is outside of the bus or in front of the bus?
It would be probably on the stop sign that comes out, and then it would catch people as they went by, going around it when they shouldn't be.
Yeah. I don't think there is a current. It would depend on the bus company, I guess, if they chose to.
I thought it was a national law that when the school bus light is blinking, everybody from both traffic have to stop.
Yeah, no, you do, but I think not everybody
It is a
does.
national thing.
So it's, not everyone does.
It's surprising how many people don't stop. And
Correct.
I mean, having talked to a lot of bus drivers over the years, it's
awful.
shocking.
Yes.
Okay, well, all in favor of this one? Okay. All right, so that I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 7 related to MCAS. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion of this?
It was pretty strong in terms of
Yeah.
Now this one,
moratorium on all testing.
and it's not to get rid of it altogether yet, right? It's to explore alternatives?
No, that's
Or is it to get rid of it for the time immediate? Oh,
Yeah.
moratorium on MCAS testing effective immediately. So that's my personal
oh yeah,
just
there it
reason
is.
why I won't be supporting this one is just that while I agree with a lot of what it's urging us to develop, to launch this evaluation, to develop an alternative, like all those things I think are, I mean, personally agree with them, but I personally don't feel it makes sense to enact a moratorium effective immediately before you have created what would come in its place for a better assessment. So that strikes me as like that's a friendly amendment I would offer to our colleagues in Framingham. But it's definitely raising some important concerns. Anyone else have like things you want to put out there on it?
Yeah, I have the same concerns on that one. I think there needs to be something else that replaces it if we end up going that route. But yeah, I don't want to stop it because I think it's helpful to see, especially just to compare, like when for instance, I'll use my own kid as an example, like when I'm looking at their grades on Power School and then when I look at the MCAS, so it does give you like a general idea, and I know there are a lot of flaws in it, but I think there needs to be something that replaces it before we get rid of it. Or my child would think she's a genius, and I don't.
I definitely appreciate a lot of what it's raising.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, no, I think that's the hard part for me is that it does sort of raise a lot of concerns of sort of how it's negatively impacted groups of students and districts. However, if we go back before we were looking at any data, then we couldn't sort of go and have interventions that say it's not okay that we're leaving all these kids behind. So for that reason, I'm not in support of a moratorium without having an alternative figured out, because otherwise I think the system is allowed to get by in leaving too many kids behind.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree with that.
Yeah, that was well put.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't support this one in the way that it's stated.
Right. Okay. Well, are we ready to vote on it?
Yes.
Okay, so all in favor of Resolution 7? All opposed? Okay. And that's finally the last one. I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 8 on safe storage of firearms. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? It continues down below to the bottom.
But it directs the superintendent to communicate with the community about this, and I just wonder in our community who the right position is to share this information. It's not typically something that comes from a school district.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It would come from maybe like public health.
Like I was thinking of public health.
The sheriff's office.
Yeah.
The sheriff's office deals with, or the police department deals with firearms and.
That's true, but at the same time, given that the particular concern of this is like the safety of children and teens, and like just thinking about our public safety departments in town, like they don't have a mechanism to directly communicate with school families. I mean, maybe it could be like a joint communication or something like that, but I was sort of like thinking of this in the vein of, you know, the way I think you are. I know in the past we have like shared out about the flu clinics, you know, happening, which are like a resource, or I don't know, nothing. I don't see this needing to be like a major campaign or anything, but just, but that it could be included in.
I guess the thing that I was wondering about is the school district telling the community about their legal obligations under Massachusetts safe storage law, which isn't, I think there's probably part of this message that would make sense coming from the school, but I'm not sure, like you were saying, a joint message or with some other entity, because it seems like it's the governmental body that is approving of, you know, giving out licenses and things like that would be the right one to share. Remember, your legal responsibility in owning a firearm is X, Y, and Z. I mean, in an analogous way, it would be like the school district, you know, kind of drilling down on fire code and sharing that information with families around, remember your legal obligation to have, you know, to protect your family, to protect children in your household is to have X number of fire alarms. And do you know what I'm saying? It's just,
Yeah.
Yes, but it's also, I mean, I think I'm viewing this in the context of like the epidemic of gun,
yeah,
like even including accidental gun deaths of kids. So it's to me a little different through that lens, but I see what you're saying. I mean, I think I see both sides of this piece for sure. Mark, sorry, you were going to say something.
No, yeah, I mean, I would imagine if anything of this happened, kind of to your point, Lizzie, it would be utilizing the schools, like utilizing Powered School to, you know, the communication platforms that the school already has at its disposal in order to reach families in a way in which families are more familiar with, versus getting something in the mail that goes straight in the trash or something like that, or, you know, goes to your spam folder or whatever else. That just the relationship that the schools are able to have with families within the community, which is a large portion. And then the message itself, though, I mean, I assume, to your point, would really be something that, like, you lean on public health or the Milton Police to kind of craft and, like, hand to you, that then, you know, we kind of email out as part of any other kind of communication of like, hey, this is Firearm Safety Month, whatever, like, here's an attachment from Milton Police about some resources for you or some reminders, and, you know, similar to like a fire safety as Milton Fire Department would send out, or, you know.
I mean, if this passes at MASC, then I guess I assume that they would then develop like a model communication, right? Or maybe not. It's where it recommends all districts to urge. So that's the other thing. It's not even binding. It's just like any district can urge the superintendent or staff to do it. And
looking forward to seeing what urging feels like.
But like,
But I mean, so we do have that safety security team. I mean, that's something like if it comes up, like if it gets passed, like we could discuss it there and then go from there.
I mean, it's certainly a problem. It was in the Globe today. There was an incident. I don't know if you read about that.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's sad that schools are sort of facing the need to be another voice and another sort of communicate this, but I think it's important. And
I mean, we're increasingly the social center of the universe.
Yeah.
Carrying all the other.
Yep.
Yep.
okay. Well, this has been a good discussion. Clearly, it's not like a clear-cut thing per se, but are we ready to vote on it? Okay, so we were at all in favor of this. Okay, thanks, everybody. So,
Do we need to vote on the proposal to amend bylaws? Is that a different?
I mean,
I don't have strong feelings on it. I
guess.
defer totally to your expertise.
I guess
in the
we
moment,
could,
personally.
might as well. It's kind of like not very clearly flat, like laid out in this flyer, but sure, why not? Let's go ahead and do that. So, I'll make a motion to approve the proposal to amend the MASC bylaws. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
The motion is to support the amending of the bylaws?
Yes, yes. As
So, yeah.
written here, yeah.
I guess the only thing I'm not clear on here is what is the current bylaw, or is there nothing about, just not sure. This is replacing current language or just adding in, it seems like it's maybe just adding in. I assume resolutions already expire. Maybe this is just a way to reassess them when they're expiring. I don't know. I feel like I have some context missing, I guess is what I'm saying, because otherwise I don't really see any issues with this personally, but I want that said before I vote for something and it turns out to be
Well,
highly contentious somewhere else.
So with that, like, I'm
Didn't we
also
abstain
okay.
from this one?
I'm also okay with it if we just
Could we abstain
decide
from?
to not vote either way on this one, or we can all abstain. I guess we have a motion on the floor.
You might learn more.
Yeah, I might get
There.
more information when I'm there that would allow me to make an informed vote one way or the other, if you all are okay with that.
I know we have a motion on the floor, so I don't want to introduce a new motion, but is in a motion,
Well, I'll withdraw my motion to approve the proposal as to amend, which is listed here. I'll just take that off the table.
can I make a motion to delegate the voting on this to you as a representative? And given, well,
Proxy.
yes, to make the decision there based on whatever other information might come out that you learn.
I second that motion.
That was a very lengthy and wordy. Mike Zulis would not be happy with that motion.
That's fine with me. So, all in favor? Okay.
While I have no power, I can still help. I'll be there.
Just make sure that I really inform myself.
I will.
Really
This is a critical one, so we'll spend a couple hours on
hard
it.
about this. Okay. All right. So, great. So, the last part under this report for me is just reporting, calendar approval procedure discussion. Okay. So, actually, Anna, I don't know if we should have you do the policy report first. We do, or should I just open this topic back up from where we left it off last week?
I think
That makes sense for policy committee and
Just to
then
kind of give it
spool
some
into
Yeah,
it.
can we
Okay.
do that? So maybe jump ahead to the policy subcommittee. You can kind of sum up that last meeting and then we can segue into this piece.
Okay, so At our, going back to our meeting from September for policy, we discussed doing like a reset and cleanup of all our existing policies. So as a first step, Dr. Burrows and the central office team went through all of our policies that we currently have and did a comparison of what MASC currently has and what they recommend. So we're kind of working through that right now. And then as part of our continued discussion of the calendar and calendar policy, we had invited a member of the community who had previously attended our school committee meeting and spoken at Citizen Speak. We had her come in and speak to us at our meeting. It was a great initial discussion to have. And this is regarding her request to recognize Eid on the school calendar. And this request has really given us an opportunity to look at our school calendar and continue our work of being more inclusive as a district where all our students are seen. So that was kind of my report. So we can now go into the discussion.
Thanks, Anna. So I think when we decided to put this on our agenda as a discussion topic, it was to think through kind of taking a step back even from this particular request that has been brought to us by a group of members of our community to add a day off for Eid, which is something that has been in process for several years now, that since they initially approached the school committee with that request, was to just think about sort of what would be a process, not under policy, because this isn't really pertaining to our calendar policy. It's pertaining to our role as a full school committee in approving the school year calendar, which is a separate sort of process where we get it from the superintendent and then we ultimately vote to approve it. So I think that's where we ended up with this as a topic to keep thinking about together, is like what would make sense for us as a process, a procedure, in terms of how we go about considering a request like this. We do have one specific request, but we recognize that there could be other requests in the future for this kind of thing to add another holiday, and then what would we do with that? So that's just the framing. So just interested in whatever thoughts you all have, and recognizing that we do have a time frame to figure this out, because the next year's calendar is going to be developed over these next couple of months. So we'd like to know how to move forward one way or another by January or so.
And just maybe I can add, in terms of the development of the calendar and implications, it adds adding a holiday adds an additional day to the school year. So those days don't change. The staff days, the student days remain the same. Those are contractual and state required. There's the potential in the development of the calendar to swap days. So some of our days, some days that we have as a holiday, we could have school on those days. An example that came up in the policy committee meeting was the day before Labor Day. That Friday is not a national holiday. But it's a traditional day. It's one that people really appreciate. But there is that option of trying to keep.
Some people appreciate it.
Some people appreciate it. Sure. I've heard from a lot of the people that do appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think these are important decisions, and they're big decisions, and doing them with real clarity is important.
Do we have a list of all the days currently on the calendar that are not days off based upon contracts or based upon state law, right? I assume.
And federal, right?
Yeah, and I assume all the.
There's not a list, but we can look at the calendar and determine that, yeah. There aren't
I
many.
think that holiday of Friday before Labor Day weekend, just based on my looking at the calendar, but I would love it if someone can show me I've missed something, but it seems like that is the only holiday which is not a PD day, which is not a another either
State or national?
state, national, or religious holiday. So in terms of that being a decision, which is, do you extend the year for everybody by 1 day for any time you're adding a day, or do you look to swap out, as you said? I think that we call it Labor Day observed for both Friday and Monday.
Oh,
Is what it says right now.
well, that's right.
Just to throw everything on the wall here, I guess the other religious holidays are Yom Kippur, Good Friday, right? I'm just trying to look. I'm looking through the calendar, see if I miss any more. I believe those are the other two, which are not. There's no state or federal requirement that a school take those days off.
Well, and those were, that was part of the rationale that was brought to us as far as,
You're already observing those.
we're observing those two out of the big three. And that was not equitable. There were a couple things. She also talked in policy subcommittee about thinking not just the number of families impacted in town with kids in schools, but also the teachers around this particular holiday. The fact that our French immersion program means we actually have a number of teachers who actually are Muslim, having come from some North African countries. That might actually be a higher proportion of practicing Muslim teachers than some of our peer districts who do not have a French immersion program. That was sort of another point she raised. But I think continuing the step back is just sort of like, what are the factors we would consider as a school committee that would lead us to add a holiday or a day off? Some of the things, so the fact, I think one thing that's implicit here is just that a request is made by stakeholders in the community, and that they bring, especially when it's not an individual making a request, but a sort of a group of people who are behind that request. So that's sort of one consideration, perhaps. And then, where that fits in relation to other holidays. I actually found out, this is sort of neither here nor there, but I think she also shared research of other districts that have taken the step to add Eid as a day off, as a holiday. So that was also presented to us. I know of other districts who have actually taken the real opposite move of actually taking away the day off holidays, but getting very much clearer on the fact that there can't be assessments, homework, or any like requirements like that around any of the holidays. So that would be, I think Northborough, Southborough someone was talking to you about this, like, so they no longer, they have school now on the Jewish, on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Good Friday. They don't take any of those days off. So that was a different way to be equitable, I guess. Like nobody gets a day off. But just.
So in that research,
And just sorry, one before you go, just
ahead.
one quick thing. That some districts do have 3 days on Thanksgiving week, not just 2. So that's not a national. That Wednesday is not
Not required, yeah. Some do
required.
a half day.
Some do a half day. on
Yeah.
Wednesday,
Right.
so.
well, that's what I was seeing here.
Yeah, right.
Sorry.
And we always have a
No.
full day off.
But
on
it's-
Wednesday. Yeah.
Yeah, that we have the 22nd off before. And, but I also wondered, in terms of the research that was presented, I think when we heard it in the full school committee, it was, referencing those who have adopted the day off, but wondered, sort of if we know more about what those conversations were within those districts, like how did they wrestle with exactly the question that we're wrestling with? And if we could do some more digging in terms of conversations of like, okay, how did that district get to we're going to take them all off the table, and how did the districts get to yes, we're going to observe this holiday too? Just wondering if we could just educate ourselves a bit more.
I think that's smart.
I could contact those superintendents easily, have a conversation.
That'd be great.
Do we have any data on how many of our students? I do think the typical thing I've seen within this is, it is an attendance focus, right? And you don't want to try and force people to come to school on a day that they're just not going to come because of other societal reasons, religious, cultural, or otherwise. And so
I'm not sure we have that.
I don't know how
I don't think we hold that data.
Yeah.
I mean, we've heard the data from the community that was it 300?
Milton Muslim Neighbors.
300?
Yeah, has 300 members or so. That's what she shared.
In terms of students, I'm not sure.
We'd have attendance data on
those days, sure.
days for the past few years to see if there's a.
Then we'd have to extrapolate.
Well, I mean, you could see at least like if
there
you'd
was a
assume that the
trend.
population is large enough that you'd see some type of decrease.
Yeah.
I do think that sort of brings up a challenging question, though, which is like, okay, how many students and families would need to be impacted for us to act on that? Would it, would that ultimately be a sort of arbitrary thing to decide?
Yeah.
Because I think that to me feels tricky to determine something like this based on the numbers of people as like the metric. I think it should be a factor, but I don't, I think whether you have 0, okay, if you have 0, sure. If you have like a majority, okay. But in between those things, it feels difficult. So I think that's where it's, in addition to that, important to consider what was also presented to us as far as like the significance of the holiday, because she's also expressing that it's not only about supporting individual families that may be celebrating that holiday, but to raise awareness within the community of this holiday and of our Muslim neighbors in Milton. So she was sort of, I don't know, Bao and Anna, you were there too, but like it seemed like that was almost as important was the way that it provides an opportunity for raising awareness, destigmatizing among like non-Muslim students and families, the way she also hopes that, you know, our days off for a Jewish high holiday or a Christian holiday provide that opportunity for those.
I completely agree with the statement that the numbers shouldn't be like the sole factor, and like how do we not make this arbitrary? I struggle with how any of these decisions, like it will always be somewhat arbitrary, like we're gonna create a line, and like does the line need to be exactly there? Probably not. You know, I don't necessarily agree with the thinking that giving people a day off of school is going to increase cultural awareness, right? The thing that actually would increase cultural awareness is a conversation led by the district, led by trusted adults.
She is asking for that too.
And like
to be
that,
clear.
no, I get that.
She agrees with what you just said.
Yeah, so my kids, you know, they're off Good Friday. I personally, and maybe as not as a good a parent as others, like I don't have long conversation with them about like what this means or what this is, and that's not a holiday we celebrate within our family. So, and again, I know she said she did, and I'm sure there are other people who do a better job of that than I do. But I just tend to think like giving folks a day off, for that being the purpose, there still being other potentially good reasons to do this. I do also, though, just look at the bottom of our calendar where we have all these other religious and cultural holidays. And, you know, to the point we're discussing to just rename it, like there are, how do we pick, you know, this one versus any of these others, all of which are celebrated by, to your point, like probably at least one family within our community. And so if we're not looking at numbers, you know, how do we pick that? And then, sorry.
No, and that's the challenge I have with it, because you can't, like, it's hard to say, like, it's a majority of people, you know, a certain number of people are celebrating this holiday, but then there might be one student who celebrates a particular holiday and we're not recognizing that student, because our goal as a district is to make sure all our students are seen, you know, and for cultural awareness. So I think it's a challenging one when we look at all the religious and cultural holidays that are represented, like how do we make sure that we are being fair to everybody in the community? You know, and I think that's where the second part you stated, where, like, you know, how do we get that message across to our students so they're more aware of the holidays that their, you know, classmates celebrate?
I think the other thing is the secular reality of schools too. And we also have a history of being non-secular. When you look at the holidays traditionally that have been celebrated. So we have this strange, like, living in two worlds type of reality that I think is understandably hard for the community to understand.
Well, and that's probably what leads a community to just say, well, we're not celebrating any of these. You know, because if we are celebrating any, like I think you're just saying, like, if we are celebrating any, then we're like biased.
So I would love to hear more from other districts because I think it's a complex decision. It's not straightforward. It's
I mean, everyone.
There's tension in it.
There's a lot of tension.
Exactly.
I mean, I've experienced this, witnessed it previously, and I would say I've never seen one template that a district's used that has been easy or made total sense. Sometimes it's been really fast. I saw one or two districts do this in under a month, like in 2 meetings, just decide. I've seen ones become really large, political, and kind of a lot of activity from different groups coming together to really kind of like talk about how important it was and looking at what other groups were getting and what they were not getting. So becoming kind of like a community, very large community, that's happened in some places too.
So
I think we probably won't learn any new, like, perfect ways to go about it, but I think learning from others in terms of like what, as they look back on their process, like what made sense. I mean, I do like what Mark shared about looking at pragmatic data, which is attendance, is one kind of way to look at it. I don't know what the impact is, but, and if we can draw, I mean, it's corollary, right?
Yeah.
So I think it sounds like we have a few next steps that we can explore. On the attendance piece, I just would like to, as we prepare to look at the poll attendance data, look at attendance, I'd like to acknowledge that I am going to look at that with a grain of salt, because I know there are families who probably have sent their kids to school on that day, even though they wish they didn't have to, but they felt pressure to do that. And so I don't want it to count against people in that way, that like, oh, there's no real impact on attendance, therefore we must not have that many people celebrating, because I just would worry about that assumption. But I think we can research these, do targeted outreach to some of these districts that have been brought to our attention who have made a shift recently. I think it seems, I know the idea had come up at our retreat discussion on this topic, that what would it look like to create like a policy around this? It does seem like it isn't a one size fits all situation. So I guess I'm still open to that as an idea. I mean, Bev was the one who had sort of raised that, and she's not here right now to further explain her rationale for that. I can't personally at this moment like envision a policy that would feel supportive around the complexity of this, but maybe we could learn from a district that has such a policy. So that we'll look into that.
I mean, I think a policy would most of these policies would say something to the effect of, if you'd like to state why, school committee will review, look at these criteria and make a decision.
Yeah, so in that sense, a generic, like a policy that
It's not going to help us.
wouldn't actually.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
That wouldn't like provide a clear-cut answer to the issue. But okay, these are a couple areas we can keep exploring. I do feel like I'd like to keep this on our agenda at our next meeting in the event that we are able to find more information. If we don't find it yet, we can postpone it. But I feel the time pressure to get this clarified. So we can add that to next time.
And if you guys want, I can share some of the data that I collected originally for policy. I think last summer. So that could be a good place to start the conversation. I know several districts have kind of looked at it holistically and gone on to add like several holidays instead of just one, so just that's another option we could look at as well. And if that's the case, how do we make that work, So, or take away holidays. So we can look at all that. So I can share that.
Thanks.
Start school in early August like I do.
When do you get out from school?
Last day is like the 21st or something of June.
So your school district?
Yeah, we're not talking
One extra month for
We have the
school.
extended school year.
They have the ability to have staff longer there, probably.
That's true as well.
And I already heard so many parents talking about the 9 half days that we have already in our school calendar. So I don't know how family in the district is going to feel about having that extra. But I do like the idea of swapping one of the days that is not necessary a day off with, if we go with approving having Eid off.
So we'll keep talking about this. Can I relatedly, like, I know not for our next meeting and I don't know when it would be possible for, but at some point, can we maybe have a discussion or get an update or a report basically from Zakia or you around this bigger question of like how we can, it is the safe and supportive schools and the equity pillars around like belonging in our schools for our multicultural community. As we've mentioned a few times, like that came up last year with like the Tucker Multicultural Fair was one idea. I don't know if I would love to be able to have that conversation in a way that doesn't like.
In the context of this conversation, or?
Well, it's just reminding me that I feel like we could make this decision about this holiday somewhat in a vacuum, which is okay. But when the purpose of the conversation is really that we have families who don't feel they belong, who don't feel their cultures are celebrated or included, and we've heard from other folks around the real, I would say, over-reliance on parent volunteers. That's like, maybe you have it at one school, you don't have it at another school. It totally depends on like which parents volunteer to come and teach about Lunar New Year or Diwali or whatever. So I'm just kind of picking that back up because that preceded you. That was like a topic had identified last year as like an area for growth. And I know that there's so much you all are doing. So I don't think any of us have been wanting to push for that, but at the same time, it does seem connected, especially if we ended up declining to add another day. I would actually only probably having been in this conversation, I would only feel comfortable personally doing that if I felt confident that we would be addressing this in some other way.
Right. I think they almost need to kind of happen, simultaneously. Like that conversation is separate, but like still related. So, and I think we need to like figure out ways to support our families because, I know she had mentioned like that, her children might not feel comfortable identifying as Muslim, and I remember going through that as a kid being Indian, so and I'm sure there are so many kids that do feel that way. So I think related to the point with safe and supportive schools, I think that's very much a pillar of ours. And so I think that needs to be addressed.
They're kind of parallel, but connected.
Looking at the Unit A contract here, there will be no school or professional development scheduled on the Friday preceding Labor Day.
That's why.
So that one's forever.
What about the 22nd of November? Or the
22nd.
Or the Wednesday before.
Yeah.
Well, it's also something that can be reopened, probably not for next year, but.
No, yeah, sure, it could be
But yeah, thank you for looking that up, because that's important. Okay, so we'll keep talking about this. Thank you all so much. Thank you again, Anna, for leading us in that, through that policy piece. Okay, so, we already, sorry, all caps.
We're on superintendent evaluation subcommittee
Yes.
report.
Why is I'm not typing my password and going to.
Yeah, I guess one other, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Just because I'm reading off something that's a computer. But one other question related to that topic is attendance policy for students who miss for religious reasons. Do we have, I assume that is in the handbook that I voted to approve too, and I'm not remembering it. But I assume
They're
those are
excused, yeah.
considered excused days. I don't know if excused days count against perfect attendance awards or something else. So I don't know if that's another piece of this as well, of if it is not, if people, we're not having a day where every person is off, how we're making it like okay for folks to take those days. And maybe it's a separate policy of identifying these are particular days in which, right, when kids miss, they're allowed to, again, make up tests, or like we don't schedule unit exams on these days, or whatever else situations.
And I think that is in our policy currently.
Yeah.
That was part of our updates
Calendar.
like 2 years
Yeah.
ago.
Right.
Yeah.
But it could definitely be more clearly communicated out. Like, I don't think there's been very intentional messaging around that. So, that could be something, a step that we could take. All right, for the superintendent evaluation subcommittee report, so let's see. I just would like to thank Anna and Mark and of course Peter. We had a good meeting
I'm a given.
where we kind of sketched out this proposed timeline. And we are bringing this to you for just as an update and for any input that either of you might have to this proposal. You can see that it kind of a little retroactive. Here we are on November 1st. We're presenting this process and timeline to you. And then going forward, we've kind of mapped out in relation to the two main public meetings, which are scheduled, which are the mid-year check-in and the final evaluation, what the process is that we're proposing. So we're interested in any feedback or input. This one, draft evaluation.
The goal is to get it done right before the new, the reorganization meeting.
Yes.
Makes sense.
So obviously the bulk of the work we'll all be doing is not until March. But we would hear back, we'll hear from Peter on January 3rd. That will be a report he'll present to provide like updates on his progress toward his goals.
And my New Year's message.
I mean, there's no getting around it, right? The window between the mid and the end is so short. Like
Blink and it's there, yeah.
It's not ideal, but I don't think there's any way of working around that.
I do think for next year, we can strive to, do the mid-year prior to winter break. So that's a goal but our timeline this year didn't really come together for that, with, not looking at goals until later in September, and then forming the evaluation subcommittee, which kind of added a couple weeks to the process.
We
So.
could move the goals to August.
Yeah, just to give it its fair time, because
I agree.
just how much change are we going to see right between January and
Makes sense. Okay, that's something we can keep in mind for next year, but given where we're at now,
And it would be nice to codify this into procedure.
it's good.
Any other thoughts? This is to me, this is
Huge advance.
awesome. I mean, I just feel so good about this because
Day and night.
we've come a long way in a couple of years, and it's really, I feel good that we're able to honor your being here, and to me, this is us wanting to do right by you
Looks great.
and try to actually hold ourselves accountable for a process that is fair, and that supports the work you're doing. So we will be busy in the last few weeks of our term. Last few weeks of my term and Bev's term. The rest of you are still here, but we won't really touch back on this for several weeks now. Okay, great. So that is, let's see, we already did finance, we already did policy, we're not doing school building committee. So that just means we're approving minutes from October 18th. I will just say I have not yet completed the minutes from last week's retreat, but I'll be doing that, so we'll be able to have those for next time. But for right now, I'll make a motion to approve the Milton School Committee meeting minutes from October 18th, 2023. Is there a second?
Second.
Any edits?
I'm quickly scanning because I did not read this ahead of time. My apologies.
That's fine. Take your time.
I need to ask fewer questions. Okay, I'm good.
Okay. All right. All in favor? Okay. It's unanimous. Thank you. And the last part is just next meeting agenda items. So we have had on the plan Tucker Site Council. Is that still the plan? FY25 budget calendar. I mean, Glenn is coming back next week, so
It would be good to go over that. We do need a
We haven't talked about it.
We need a finance subcommittee prior to that.
Yeah, we haven't talked about the Q4 report or the Q1 report. We're mostly through Q2. Right. Yep. Okay. Well,
Have those meetings been confirmed?
Which ones?
The finance subcommittee.
I believe they have, yes.
Okay.
so they're on the calendar.
I believe that's what I saw, yeah. I'm saying believe because it's been quite a long journey, and
And those are all cross-posted, right, too? Should be.
so you were on those emails, right?
They're not in the calendar. Do you see them?
when was the next
So
one?
I'm looking, right, like there's,
Yeah.
yeah. They're not in my, I don't see them in the calendar.
You mean the schedule, like a invite in your calendar or something? Yeah.
Correct.
I saw a confirmation by email, but
I saw back and forth, but I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if we,
Yeah.
because
I will confirm. Tomorrow.
yeah, because I'm,
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
And then, okay, so we'll just wait and see which budget-related elements we will have next week.
Yeah, we'll know more by the time we meet to discuss agenda.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we have, you mentioned an enrollment report.
Yep.
We'll have the FY25 capital requests back potentially.
Hopefully. Yep.
Okay. And then I think I'm supposed to do a report from the MASC annual meeting. So that will be under the chair's report. And anything else at this time?
I think we have a policy meeting on the 14th.
Right, so we will have reports from policy, finance, or any other, maybe school building committee.
School building should have one. And facility advisory is meeting on the 15th, right before our meeting.
Okay. And I'll have, let's see, I will not. Okay, so I think that's it for right now.
Do we need to approve the music true proposal at all?
They were going to come back to us.
We're gonna come back later.
Yeah. I think that was just
It's a process that I'd like to
an
review.
initial, like,
Yeah.
It's
for information.
doesn't make a lot of sense to me currently.
That they come once to talk
Yeah,
about it,
I
and
mean,
then it happens.
One, that they
months
come
later.
twice, and two, like that they come to the school committee for approval when it's an administrative operational process. So it's that part's I've never seen before.
I could
Yeah,
maybe.
it happens with another trip too.
The DC trip.
The
same
DC
thing.
It's all
one.
the out. It says out of state require
Yeah.
the school committee.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just something we could talk about as we talk about policy.
Okay. All right, well, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
So much.
And thank you for the principal updates, by the way. I meant to say that.
Oh, yeah.